You can save 15% or more at Amazon when you pay with Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. Just go to purse.bogosity.tv. You can set your own discount. 5% gets you fastest delivery, or you can set it to 30% or more if you're not in a hurry. Purse makes it so easy to save money at Amazon by buying with crypto. Just go to purse.bogosity.tv and start saving now. Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the week of July 7th, 2019, the podcast that's going to dance on the floor in the round. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's hydrolate the news of the bogus. First, a fairly quick update on a story we've been following concerning Craig Wright, the man who isn't in any way Satoshi Nakamoto, inventor of Bitcoin. He's embroiled in lawsuits that we've covered, particularly with the estate of the late Daniel Kleiman, along with his surviving brother Ira. Kleiman claims that Wright stole 1.1 million Bitcoins from his brother mined by their company, W&K Info Defense Research. Daniel Kleiman is one of the people speculated to be the real Satoshi. Court documents now show conclusively that Wright has committed fraud and is now facing up to 5 years in prison as well as numerous fines. After Kleiman's death, Wright unlawfully took possession of the company's bitcoins as well as its intellectual property, but Wright swore under penalty of perjury that he never exercised any control or authority over W&K. But now it's come out that, in a sworn affidavit Wright submitted to the Supreme Court of New South Wales, he confirmed he had 50% ownership of W&K, and that Kleiman owned the other 50%. Which means he had no right to take the bitcoins and other property of W&K without dispersing the other 50% to Kleiman's estate. So now it appears that Wright has really gotten himself in hot water. Some people are just their own worst enemy. Ads are annoying, but ad blockers prevent publishers from making money. What if you could support your favorite websites, YouTube creators, Twitch streamers, social accounts, and many more ad-free and without paying anything, and even make some money yourself? It's not a pipe dream, it's airtime. Go to airtime.bogosity.tv and get the browser extension, and you'll earn cryptocurrency for the sites you visit, and so will the publisher. This is not a crypto miner. You and the publisher will both get part of the reward from current miners of the BitTube cryptocurrency, with no middleman taking a cut. Even if the publisher hasn't signed up yet, his tube will be put into a dedicated wallet that he can claim upon sign up. You can also use your tube to tip publishers and even purchase products. Airtime monetizes users and publishers with no ads or crypto miners. Go to airtime.bogosity.tv and start making money now. Say, if you're tired of the promos in this podcast, well, the patrons got it early and with no ads or promos. Just go to patreon.bogosity.tv and donate at any level. Here's an interesting story about so-called hate crimes from Sweden, which means it's just all full of names I can mispronounce. A 52-year-old Swede who runs the Stand Up for Sweden Facebook group has been found guilty of breaking the BBS Act of 1998, a law criminalizing threats or intimidation towards ethnic groups. The thing is, this Swede is not the author of these messages. No one even tried to claim that he was. They were just made on his Facebook group, and he's being held responsible for them simply because he didn't delete them. The BBS Act states, in part, a supplier of internet-based information services is to some extent responsible for illegal content in these services, even if these illegal contents have been submitted by users of the service. The man pointed out that the group has 162,000 members and 3 million comments are posted every year, and so there's no reasonable way he can police them all. He can appeal the case to the Swedish Supreme Court, but if it's not overturned, he will be the first conviction under this law. This is why Section 230 is so important. This is what happens in a country without it. One question: if he's liable because it was on his Facebook group, then isn't Facebook themselves liable since it was on their website? There's also no claim being made that the people who wrote the comments were Swedish, so you can be held criminally liable for actions of users that might not even be a crime where they live. Here's the part that gets me. The NGO Legal Front is saying that they informed him about these comments and that his inaction in the face of this reporting makes him culpable. But they informed him in a PDF that they attached to an email. The man said that he didn't see it because he didn't open the PDF file because he doesn't open attachments from people he doesn't know. And he is absolutely right to do so. PDF files can have malware in them. In fact, that's a very common method for distributing viruses and Trojans. And in a day of botnets, ransomware, and other serious attacks, people should take no chances. Not only is he held responsible for the actions of others, apparently he can be convicted because he didn't take the risk of opening a potentially dangerous email attachment. In Sweden, I guess you have to put yourself at risk of malware to avoid being held responsible for some crime. Man, what is wrong with that country? If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. Our public schools are more and more becoming Big Brother, installing surveillance instead of doing things that actually make kids safer. All they're doing is treating schools like high crime areas, or even worse, prisons, when statistically they're among the safest places on Earth. And every child is a person of interest in a Minority Report world of unspecified future crimes. Or as Tim Cushing puts it in this TechNerd article, the difference between schools and prisons is the bell at the end of the day. The latest is so-called aggression-detecting microphones such as ShotSpotter, which is supposed to alert security personnel that an attack is in progress based on human voice stresses. And it's not only used in schools, it's being used in banks, stores, healthcare facilities, and even prisons all around the world. The problem is, it doesn't work. In a test of one of these systems, the horror movie screams of a drama student didn't set off the microphone, but another student with a chest cold did inadvertently set it off with ordinary coughing. It was also set off by a clip of Gilbert Gottfried. There's also a gunshot detector that was triggered by slammed locker doors and yells of happy birthday. In fact, it's such a failure that the Valley Hospital in Ridgewood, New Jersey is getting rid of the things. The devices have been set off by patients' voices when they got loud, and cafeteria workers slamming closed the cash register. When they tweaked the system to be less sensitive, it ignored an agitated man screaming and pounding on a desk, a situation which escalated until 6 security officers arrived. The excuse for surveillance is always safety, but it never seems to deliver. Instead, they end up being tools of power and intimidation. We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before. Not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. And now it's time to sublimate this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And once again, it goes to Salon.com, or as we like to call them, Saloon. But it'll take a while to get to why, so let's cover the story first. San Francisco has just banned e-cigarettes, even though the scientific consensus, as we've covered, is that they're at least 95% safer than smoking, probably a lot more than that. But the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to make it illegal to sell or distribute e-cigs in San Fran. The only exception is if they've somehow managed to get pre-market review by the FDA, which to date none of them have, and given the political bias and cronyism in the FDA, they're not likely to anytime soon. Ironically, one of the biggest producers of e-cigs, Juul Labs, is based in San Francisco. Public health experts warn that vaping chemicals are understudied, which, as we've also covered, is a load of crap. But according to Mayor London Breed, quote, "There is so much we don't know about the health impacts of these products. So much you don't know, maybe. But we do know that e-cigarette companies are targeting our kids in their advertising and getting them hooked on addictive nicotine products. Yes, it's the same old, same old. Just take the talking points from 50 years ago, dust them off, and apply them to the new product." No mention, of course, on how effective vaping has been at getting people to quit smoking, as Juul Labs spokesperson Ted Kwong said, quote, "This full prohibition will drive former adult smokers who successfully switched to vapor products back to deadly cigarettes, deny the opportunity to switch for current adult smokers, and create a thriving black market instead of addressing the actual causes of underage access and use." So here's the part that gets Saloon the prize, quote, "Teen smoking was almost a thing of the past until vaping came along. Between 1997 and 2015, the U.S. high school smoking rate declined by an astonishing 70%, the result of almost 2 decades of public health initiatives prompted by alarm over an uptick in teen smoking in the 1990s. The downward trend led some to predict that teen smoking could be entirely eliminated by 2035, but according to the FDA, more than 3.6 million middle and high school students smoked e-cigs. Saloon, you don't smoke e-cigs. There's no smoke there at all. Beyond the nicotine in e-cigarettes, not all e-cigs have nicotine, Saloon. In fact, most teens favor nicotine-free vape juice of numerous flavors. Lumping them in with smokers is disingenuous at best. Now here's the big one, quote, "There are other less well-understood chemical threats like diacetyl, which Salon reported on in June. Diacetyl is commonly used to add flavor to food, but is also a byproduct produced by a majority of the flavored electronic cigarettes." And of course, they're repeating the long-debunked claim that diacetyl causes popcorn lung. It doesn't, which Saloon would have known if they just checked with Snopes. The fear-mongering over this comes from a single paper from Harvard, which is just full of bogosity. For example, they claim to have discovered the presence of diacetyl in e-cigs, when in reality the companies had already disclosed its presence. The link between diacetyl and popcorn lung came from a CDC paper which looked at just 8 cases of an illness resembling popcorn lung among workers at a popcorn factory, which is where the term popcorn lung came from. And they didn't even establish a link with diacetyl, just its presence in the factory. There's a big problem. Regular tobacco cigarettes contain over 100 times the diacetyl that vapes do, and yet several studies have found that even this level wasn't enough to cause popcorn lung in smokers. Oh, Saloon, you've done it again. According to physician and anti-smoking activist Michael Siegel, quote, "The Harvard study is a perfect example of something that happens over and over. It creates a scare by omitting a key piece of information, undermining the public's appreciation of the severe hazards of tobacco smoking, and leading to perverse public health outcomes." Siegel describes such bans, as well as efforts to misinform the public about how dangerous e-cigs are when they're actually much safer, as irresponsible. All of which is more than enough to give Salon.com another biggest Bogon emitter. Do you have children, or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling, or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins, and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary-aged children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins. And now let's auscultate this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. And this week it goes to Verizon for taking down a large chunk of the internet for hours by trying to route it all through, get this, a steel mill in Pittsburgh. So if you're wondering why you were unable to access the internet during the morning hours of the 24th of June, well, you can blame Verizon. Their systems directed a good portion of the packets traversing the internet far and wide through this small company, resulting in many websites, including Cloudflare, Amazon, Facebook, and many others, becoming inaccessible. By way of analogy, imagine if GPS systems suddenly routed all of the interstate traffic on the East Coast through a small back road. The culprit here is BGP, the Border Gateway Protocol, which helps the routers on the public internet keep track of what links go to which networks. BGP is how the routers build this internet map so they can get your packets to their destination quickly and reliably. But it's not without problems. BGP routes are advertised to connecting routers without any kind of authentication or verification, which means that problems arise, problems that every internet backbone provider knows to check for and filter out. Well, everyone except Verizon, it seems. The initial fault was that of DQR Communications, which was using a BGP optimizer in their network, which is what a lot of telecoms use to manage specific routes. In BGP, specific routes override more general routes, so by analogy, a route to the White House would override a route to Washington, D.C. But there was a small issue that caused this entire routing table to be sent to Allegheny Technologies Incorporated, a small steel mill. Allegheny was also connected to Verizon, and their router dutifully passed on all of these better routes. Now, this sort of thing actually happens all the time, and it's not an issue because the Tier 1 providers filter them out. Verizon should have known to do this, and stop this in its tracks. If they'd been following industry best practices that have been in place for 24 years, they would have. But they didn't have any of the necessary filtering in place, so Verizon's routers gleefully accepted all of these new routes and started routing all of this internet traffic through Allegheny. 20,000 new network prefixes from this one location, and Verizon systems just went, meh, okay. Of course, Allegheny's internet connection wasn't anywhere near big enough to be able to handle it, and the result was a loss of about 15% of global internet traffic. It's baffling as to why this happened. These filters wouldn't have cost Verizon anything whatsoever to implement. It wouldn't have limited their service or affected their network in any way. Experts have weighed in, and the only reasons they can come up with for not doing this are laziness, sloppiness, or incompetence. And this is something that happened by accident. How many data points do hackers now have about what they can achieve maliciously thanks to nothing more than Verizon's incompetence? It gets worse. Cloudflare quickly traced the problem back to Verizon and tried to contact them, and couldn't. They'd gotten with DQE right away and had the problem solved from their end, but Verizon was still misrouting all of this traffic, and they weren't responding to Cloudflare. According to Tom Strix at Cloudflare, quote, "It is unfortunate that while we tried both email and phone calls to reach out to Verizon at the time of writing this article, over 8 hours after the incident, we have not heard back from them, nor are we aware of them taking action to resolve the issue." Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince was even more vocal. He tweeted, quote, "It's networking malpractice that the NOC at Verizon has still not replied to messages from other networking teams they impacted, including ours, hours after they mistakenly leaked a large chunk of the internet's routing table." Verizon could and should have had the appropriate filters in place to deal with this issue. This is something that's been a problem for decades, and it's ridiculous that they didn't have these basic filters in place. But even worse, to not even respond when you're a tier 1 backbone provider that so many others are relying upon, especially when it's freaking Cloudflare? You do not want Cloudflare CEO trashing you on the internet, once he regains access to it, because you did something stupid that stopped his business from working. But that's exactly what Verizon did, and that's exactly what gets them named this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
Well, that wraps up this round and round edition of the Bogosity podcast. Come to discord.bogosity.tv where you can join the discussion and post a question, statement, news article, or rant. This podcast depends on you to keep going, so please go to donate.bogosity.tv where you can give using PayPal or crypto, or subscribe at Patreon or Subscribestar to get the podcast and YouTube videos early and ad-free. You can even support this podcast for free with the airtime extension. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from Oscar Wilde. Public opinion is an attempt to organize the ignorance of the community and to elevate it to the dignity of physical force. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.
You can now get 2 free audiobook downloads and a 30-day free trial at audible.bogosity.tv. Your choice from the world's largest selection of over 180,000 digital audiobooks and spoken word content for your iOS or Android device, Kindle, or MP3 player. Go to audible.bogosity.tv now.